how do we hold the racket. So what Chad's going to do is he's going to take his racket, put the bottom cap into his belly button, put his hand flat on the strings, and grip down to where he's about 3/4 the way down, holding. And this is what we call a semi-Western grip. From that position, he's going to put his hand on the push rim. We have a tire, we have the push rim, his hands on the push rim, both hands ready to go. So anytime you begin teaching forehand, backhand, any of the strokes, it's best to just toss underhand with your student close to the net because the feeds have to be as perfect as possible. So I'm going to demonstrate right now with Chad. So Chad's going to push up and give a little bump, and that's how we start. Then he turns and he goes back, and we call that an inside turn. Chad pushes up, gives it a little bump, makes his inside turn, and he goes back. And this is how we learn the basic forehand. First with a little bump, pushes and goes back. He's making sure that when he gives it a bump, the ball's to his side. And the key to that is me, the feeder. If I feed it like this, he's not going to be able to learn how to hit the ball. So the feed has to be correct. So what Chad is actually doing with the bump is putting the racket in front of him, across his body, and gives it a bump. We'll do that again. He moves in, the racket goes across his body, and he gives it a bump. By Chad being close to the net, it encourages him also to learn how to hit up. And hitting up is paramount in tennis because our first obstacle that we have is the net. So above all else, Chad has to learn how to hit over the net. So he pushes, gives it a bump, makes his turn, called an inside turn, and goes back. Now Chad's going to learn how to hit the ball as he moves to his side, something that I call second position. All right, Chad, start pushing to the side. The racket's in front, gives it a bump, and he turns into the court. So both hands push, he lets go of the right hand, gives it a bump, and he naturally turns into the court. Again, that's called an inside turn. Now we're going to demonstrate the third move, which is where Chad sees a ball that he has to go back. Now, these balls are getting a little bit deeper that I have to feed, so I'm going to feed from a choked up position. So Chad, start back, turning, going back. I feed. He hits and recovers towards the middle. He turns. He starts back. He hits, comes back to the middle. Notice that he still has his choked up grip in what we call a semi-Western position. Very good. So he's just giving the ball a little bump and coming back towards the middle. And as you notice, Chad let the ball bounce twice. He is allowed to let the ball bounce twice. Now that Chad is comfortable choking up on the grip, we're going to ask him to grip down. He's backing up to 3/4 court, and now we're going to go through the same 4 moves. Here we go. So Chad, show the racket across you, gripping down. And the 4 basic moves, he's going to come forward. He's going to hit the ball. Then he's going to add a little follow through. The follow through is where the racket extends out towards me. He'll be looking over his arm. Notice that his arm is bent, so he could hit balls that come in at him or jam him. Or if I hit the ball away from him, he could reach out and still hit it. So very important, as Chad begins, his right arm is bent, his hitting arm. And as he does that, he's able to comfortably finish his follow through. Now let's go right to second position. The ball's hit to Chad's side, he moves, and he finishes looking over his arm. And notice that he moves the chair towards the middle of the court before he actually hits the ball. By doing this, his recovery will be much faster, and he has the ability to be prepared for the next shot. And one more. We'll go right to third position now, where I hit the Chad. The ball's deep, which means going back. And he comes back. And again. Okay, and as you could see, the ball jammed Chad. He was able to just hit across it with his arm bent. And that's exactly what we need to do. And recovers back towards the middle. All right, fourth position. The ball's hit right at Chad. He gets out of the way, and he hits, and he comes back.
Let's look at the 4 basic moves, including the ball. First one is moving forward, and then recovering to the side, racket back, inside turn, and then back for those high balls, and now the ball directly at me. On the ball that's coming directly at me, my first move is with the right, then with the left, so I can get out of the way. Now we're going to speed it up. First move, forward. Second move, to the side. Racket back, inside turn. Third move, back. Inside turn, left hand on the wheel. Next move, the ball right at me. So a basic tip for the basic forehand is you want to keep your elbow bent and you don't want to use your wrist. You want to use just your arm. So let's see how it looks. No wrist, and start with a bent elbow, just using your arm. Now what you don't want to do is start with a straight arm. Remember, you want to start bent elbow, just using the arm. And sometimes you might have to stretch and the arm ends up straight, but the first position is a bent elbow.